Imagine standing in a dimly lit room, the air thick with tension. As the sound of a distant clock ticks louder than your own heartbeat, you're surrounded by faces you thought you knew, friends, family, allies, but one of them harbors a secret so dark it could unravel everything. A single name, whispered in the wrong ear, could mean death. This is the world of Agatha Christie's Death Comes as the End, where trust is a luxury and betrayal hides behind every smile. Today we're diving into a gripping tale of mystery, deception, and a shocking revelation from the brilliant Hercule Poirot himself, a revelation that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew. So grab a cup of tea, dim the lights, and let's unravel the secrets together. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss a single twist. Welcome to the sun-scorched deserts of ancient Egypt, where Agatha Christie sets her masterpiece Death Comes as the end, a novel that dares to blend her signature murder mystery with a historical twist. Unlike her usual tales of 20th century drawing rooms, this story takes us back thousands of years to a family estate. In Thebes, around 2000 BC, it's a bold move, and Christie pulls it off with chilling precision. The story centers on the family of Imhotep, a wealthy mortuary priest, whose household is a simmering cauldron of jealousy, greed, and hidden motives. But here's where it gets juicy. A series of mysterious deaths begins to plague the family, and no one, not even the wise and meticulous Hercule Poirot, can be sure who's next. In this chapter, we'll set the stage for this ancient enigma, introduce the key players, and tease the suspense that's about to unfold. Ready to step into a world where every shadow hides a secret. Let's go. The story opens with Imhotep, a proud and controlling patriarch, bringing a new concubine, Nofret, into his sprawling household. This isn't just a minor change. It's a spark that ignites a firestorm of resentment. Grown children, his daughter-in-law, and even the servants bristle at Nofret's arrival. She's young, beautiful, and cunning, and her presence threatens the delicate balance of power in the family. The air crackles with unspoken grudges as Imhotep's sons Yamos, Sobek, and IP each grapple with their own ambitions and insecurities. Yamos, the eldest, is dutiful but weak-willed. Sobek is brash and reckless. IP, the youngest, is spoiled and scheming. Then there's Renaissance, Imhotep's daughter, who's recently widowed and returned home, her heart heavy with grief but her eyes sharp with curiosity. She's our window into this world, a woman who senses something is terribly wrong but can't quite put her finger on it. Sound familiar? It's the classic Christie setup. A seemingly perfect family, fractured by secrets, and a stranger who's about to tip everything into chaos. Now, let's talk about Poirot. In this adaptation, we're imagining Hercule Poirot stepping into this ancient world, a brilliant anachronism, if you will. His iconic mustache and razor-sharp mind are as timeless as ever, but here he's not sipping tea in a London parlor. Instead, he's navigating a labyrinth of mud-brick corridors and palm-shaded courtyards, his keen eyes missing nothing. Poirot is called to the estate by a desperate letter from Renaissance, who fears the family is cursed after a string of eerie accidents. But Poirot, ever the skeptic of the supernatural, suspects something far more human: murder. As he arrives, the first death strikes Nofret is found at the bottom of a cliff, her body broken on the rocks below. Was it an accident or was she pushed? The family insists it's a tragic mishap, but Poirot's little gray cells are already buzzing. He notices the way Yamos avoids his wife's gaze, the way Sobek's hands clench at the mention of Nofret's name, and the way Renaissance's voice trembles when she speaks of her father's temper. The question isn't just who killed Nofret, it's why, and who might be next. What makes this setup so deliciously suspenseful is how Christie weaves the unfamiliar setting of ancient Egypt with the universal themes of betrayal and ambition. The family's sprawling estate, with its hidden corners and whispering servants, feels like a pressure cooker ready to explode. Every conversation is laced with double meanings, every glance a potential clue. For example, when Renaissance overhears a heated argument between Sobek and Nofret just days before the death, she dismisses it as petty sibling rivalry, but Poirot knows better. He jots down every detail in his notebook, from the way Nofret taunted Sobek about his lack of inheritance to the way Imhotep's scribe, Hori, lingers a little too long in Renaissance presence. These are the breadcrumbs of a master detective, and we're following right behind him, piecing together a puzzle that's only just beginning to take shape. By the end of this chapter, we're hooked on the mystery. A family torn apart by greed. A stranger's death that feels too convenient to be accidental. And Poirot's arrival promising answers or perhaps even more questions. The stage is set for a tale where no one can be trusted, and every step brings us closer to a truth that's more shocking than anyone could imagine. So what happens when another body is found, and the family's secrets start spilling like blood on the sand? Stick around for Chapter 2, where the stakes get higher and the shadows grow darker. If you're as gripped by this mystery as I am, hit that like button, subscribe, and let me know in the comments, who do you think pushed Nofret? Let's keep unraveling this together. Welcome back to the scorching sands of ancient Thebes, where the air is thick with suspicion and Hercule Poirot's sharp mind is already slicing through the lies. If you thought Nofret's death at the bottom of that cliff was the end of the tragedy, buckle up, things are about to get darker. In Chapter 1, we met Imhotep's fractured family, torn apart by the arrival of the cunning concubine Nofret, whose sudden death raised more questions than answers. Now a second death rocks. The household and Poirot's investigation takes a chilling turn. In this chapter, we'll dive into the aftermath of Nofret's demise, uncover new clues, and watch as the family's fragile unity crumbles under the weight of fear and guilt. Who's hiding the truth? And what does this new death mean for Poirot's search for answers? Let's find out, but beware, every step deeper into this mystery pulls us closer to a revelation that could shatter everything. If you're loving this suspense, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe for more. The chapter opens in the quiet hours after Nofret's death, with the family gathered in the shadowed courtyard of Imhotep's estate. The air is heavy with grief, or is it relief? Imhotep, the patriarch, is furious, demanding answers about how his beloved concubine fell to her death. His sons Yamos, Sobek, and IP exchange uneasy glances, while Renaissance, Imhotep's daughter, watches, silently, her mind racing. Poirot, ever the observer, notes the subtle cracks in their facades, Yamos's nervous fidgeting, Sobek's forced bravado, and Ippy's smug silence. The servants whisper of a curse, claiming the gods are angry with Imhotep's household, but Poirot dismisses such talk with a wave of his hand. The gods do not push people off cliffs, he says sharply, his Belgian accent cutting through the murmurs. But men and women? That is another matter. His words hang in the air, and you can feel the tension tighten like a noose. The family wants to believe Nofret's death was an accident, but Poirot's already planting seeds of doubt. Tandy's about to get more to work with. Just days after Nofret's burial, tragedy strikes again. Yamos's sharp-tongued wife is found dead at the same cliff's edge where Nofret fell. Her body lies crumpled on the rocks, her eyes wide with a frozen scream. The family is stunned, and the whispers of a curse grow louder. Was Satipi drunk, as Sobek suggests, stumbling to her doom in a moment of carelessness? Or did someone lure her to the cliff under the cover of night? Poirot wastes no time examining the scene with his meticulous precision. He notices faint scuff marks in the dust, suggesting a struggle, or in a broken sandal strap that doesn't quite match the story of a drunken fall. Curious, he murmurs, his eyes narrowing as he scans the faces of the family. Renaissance, standing nearby, confesses she saw Satipi arguing with Nofret just hours before the concubine's death, an argument about Yamos's inheritance. Could Satipi have known something dangerous, or was she silenced before she could reveal? The plot thickens, and you can't help but lean closer to the screen, wondering who's next. What makes this second death so gripping is how it escalates the stakes. One death could be an accident, but two? That's a pattern, and Poirot knows it. He begins questioning the family more aggressively, his polite demeanor masking a relentless pursuit of the truth. For example, he corners Sobek, whose temper flares. When asked about his whereabouts the night Satipi died, "I was in the village, drinking," Sobek snaps. But Poirot notes the sweat on his brow and the way his eyes dart to Ipy, who smirks in the background. Then there's Hori, the family's quiet scribe, who seems to know more than he lets on. When Poirot asks him about Satippe's habits, Hori hesitates, mentioning her habit of wandering the cliffs at dusk, but his voice is too careful, too measured. Even Renaissance, our grieving heroine, isn't above suspicion. She admits to Poirot that she felt a strange relief at Nofret's death, but Satippe's, it hits her harder, and her tears seem genuine, or are they? Christie's genius lies in making everyone a suspect, and Poirot's methodical approach keeps us guessing at every turn. As the chapter closes, the estate feels like a house of cards, ready to collapse with one wrong move. Poirot gathers the family to announce his early findings. Both deaths were no accidents. Murder, he declares, his voice steady but grave, has been committed here, and it will not stop until the truth is uncovered. The family gasps, but their eyes betray them. Fear, anger, guilt. Someone knows more than they're saying, and Poirot's little gray cells are working overtime to find out who. The suspense is unbearable. Is there a single killer stalking the household, or are multiple hands at play? And what does this have to do with the mysterious letter Renaissance being sent to summon Poirot in the first place? We're left hanging, desperate for answers, as the desert sun sets and the shadows grow longer. That's it for Chapter 2, but the mystery is just heating up. In Chapter 3, we'll follow Poirot as he digs deeper into the family's secrets. Uncovering a hidden motive that could point to the killer or make him the next target. If you're hooked on this ancient Egyptian whodunit, hit that like button, subscribe, drop a comment below. Do you think Satipi was pushed, or is there a darker force at work? Let's keep unraveling this deadly puzzle together. The desert sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows over Imhotep's estate, where fear now grips every heart. Hercule Poirot's declaration of murder has shattered the family's fragile pretense, and the deaths of Nofret and Satippe hang over them like a storm cloud. No one feels safe, and every glance is laced with suspicion. In this chapter, we follow Poirot as he weaves through the family's tangled motives, uncovering secrets that cut deeper than a dagger. The clues are piling up: scuff marks on a cliff, a broken sandal, a heated argument overheard in the night, but the truth remains just out of reach. Is the killer one person, driven by a single dark purpose, or are there multiple threads in this deadly web? Let's dive into the heart of the mystery, where every word could be a lie and every step could be a trap. Stick with me, because the suspense is about to tighten its grip. Poirot begins his investigation in earnest. Moving through the estate like a hawk circling its prey, he starts with Renaissance, whose quiet intelligence makes her both an ally and a suspect. She confides in him about a chilling memory, the night before Nofret's death. She saw her arguing with Hori, the scribe, near the cliff's edge. There, voices were low, but Renaissance Bell caught fragments, something about a hidden document and Imhotep's wealth. Poirot's eyes gleam at this, his mustache twitching as he jots it down.
That's
A document, you say?
most interesting.
He murmurs already. Piecing together possibilities. Could Nofret have discovered something worth killing for? Perhaps a will or a contract that threatened someone's inheritance? Renaissance swears she told no one else, but her nervous glance toward her brother Yamo suggests she's holding something. Back Poirot doesn't press her yet, but you can feel his mind working, cataloging every hesitation, every flicker of fear. Next, Poirot turns his attention to Hori, the scribe, whose calm demeanor hides a sharp mind. Hori admits to speaking with Nofret, but insists it was about estate accounts, nothing more. She was curious, he says carefully, his fingers brushing the papyrus scrolls on his desk. But Poirot notices a faint tremor in Hori's hand, and when he casually asks about Satippe's death, Hori's eyes darken. She was reckless, he says, always wandering where she shouldn't. It's a vague answer, and Poirot pounces on it, pressing for details. Did Satippe know about the document too? Was she poking her nose into dangerous secrets? Hori clams up, but not before letting slip that Satippe had been asking questions about Nofret's past questions that made Imhotep furious. The plot thickens. And you can't help but wonder, is Hori protecting someone? or is he the one with blood on his hands? The family's tension spikes as Poirot's questions stir up old wounds. Sobek, the hot-headed middle son, storms into the courtyard, accusing Poirot of sowing discord. You're turning us against each other. He shouts, but Poirot remains unfazed, his voice smooth as silk. The truth, Monsieur Sobek, does not create division, it reveals it. He asks Sobek about his alibi for Satipi's death, and the young man's bravado falters. He claims he was in the village, but a servant contradicts him, saying Sobek was seen near the cliffs that night. The accusation hangs in the air, and Sobek's face reddens as Ipai, the youngest brother, smirks from the sidelines. Ippy's smugness catches Poirot's eye. He's too confident, too untouched by the tragedy. When questioned, Ippy admits he despised both Nofret and Satipi, calling them vipers who poisoned the family. But his flippant tone doesn't fool. Poirot, who notes Ippy's expensive new robe paid for by Imhotep's gold, could Ippy's ambition be deadly? As the day ends, Poirot sits alone under a palm tree, his notebook filled with clues, a hidden document, a family divided, and 2 women. Dead at the same cliff? He muses aloud. The motive is here, in the heart of this household, but it hides behind a mask of loyalty. The suspense is suffocating. Every family member has a reason to hate Nofret and Satipi, but who had the nerve to act on it? Why does Renaissance keep glancing at the cliffs, as if expecting another body to fall? The chapter closes with a chilling moment. Poirot finds a scrap of papyrus near the cliff, half buried in the sand. It's a fragment of a letter, written in Nofret's hand, and it mentions a secret that could destroy them all. The camera lingers on Poirot's face, his eyes narrowing as he tucks the fragment away. The truth is closer, but so is the danger. We're teetering on the edge of a breakthrough, but the shadows are growing darker. In Chapter 4, Poirot will chase the trail of that mysterious letter, and a new clue will point to a suspect no one expected. If you're as hooked as I am, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment. What do you think Nofret's secret was? Let's keep digging into this ancient mystery together. The night air in Imhotep's estate is heavy, the kind of stillness that feels like the calm before a sandstorm. Hercule Poirot clutches the tattered scrap of papyrus he found near the cliff. Its cryptic words destroy them all, burning. In his mind, like a torch, the deaths of Nofret and Satipi have torn the family apart, and now, with this new clue, Poirot is closer to unraveling the killer's motive. But the closer he gets, the more dangerous the game becomes. In this chapter, we'll follow Poirot as he chases the trail of Nofret's mysterious letter, digging into the family's buried secrets and uncovering a suspect no one saw coming. The estate is a maze of lies, and every corner hides a new twist. Is the killer tightening their grip, or is Poirot about to outsmart them? Let's step deeper into the shadows, where the truth is as slippery as the desert sand. Poirot begins the day in the scribe's quarters, where Hori sits surrounded by scrolls and ink-stained fingers. The papyrus fragment, though small, is a bombshell, and Poirot wastes no time. He shows it to Hori, watching his face for any flicker of recognition. "This is Nofret's hand, is it not?" Poirot asks, his voice calm but piercing. Hori's eyes widen for a split second before he recovers, nodding slowly. "It could be," he says, "but she wrote many letters for Imhotep." Poirot presses further, asking if Nofret ever mentioned a secret that could ruin the family. Hori hesitates, his fingers tightening around a reed pen. She was ambitious, he admits. She spoke of power, of changing things. Changing what exactly? Hori clams up, but Poirot notices a locked wooden box on the scribe's desk, its carvings worn but intricate. Could it hold the rest of Nofret's letter or something even more damning? Poirot makes a mental note to return, but for now, he leaves Hori squirming under his gaze. The scribe knows more than he's saying. You can feel the tension building like a coiled snake. Next, Poirot seeks out Imhotep himself, the patriarch whose pride blinds him to the chaos in his own house. Imhotep is in the garden, barking, orders its servants as they prepare for a ritual to appease the gods. Poirot, ever polite, interrupts with a question that cuts like a knife. "Did Nofret ever threaten your legacy, monsieur?" Imhotep's face darkens, his hands clenching the staff he carries. She was loyal, he snaps, but his voice wavers. Poirot mentions the papyrus fragment, carefully watching Imhotep's reaction. The patriarch's eyes flicker with something fear. Anger, before he dismisses it as a servant's scribble. But Poirot isn't fooled. He recalls Renaissance story of Nofret arguing with Imhotep about his will, a detail that now feels like a key to the puzzle. Was Nofret trying to manipulate Imhotep's fortune, perhaps to favor herself or someone else?
Wow.
And did someone kill her to keep that fortune safe? The thought hangs in the air, heavy and ominous, as Imhotep storms off, leaving Poirot with more questions than answers. The investigation takes a darker turn when Poirot visits the cliffs again. This time with Renaissance beat at his side. She's nervous, her hands twisting as she recounts another memory. Satipi. Yamos's wife had been seen rifling through Nofret's belongings the day before her own death. She was looking for something. Renaissance whispers, her voice barely audible over the desert wind. I thought it was just jealousy. But now, Poirot's eyes narrow as he scans the cliff's edge, where the scuff marks from Satipi's fall still linger. He notices something new, a faint smear of red ochre, the kind used in rituals, caught in a crevice. It's a tiny detail, but to Poirot, it's a beacon. Red ochre is rare in the household, used only by the priests and Imhotep's trusted advisor, ESA, his sharp-witted mother. Could the elderly ESA, who's been quietly observing from the sidelines, know more than she lets on? Poirot files this away, his mind racing with possibilities. The camera zooms in on the ochre smear, and you can almost hear the heartbeat of the mystery quickening. As Poirot digs deeper, the family's fractures widen. Yamos, the dutiful eldest son, is unraveling under the pressure. Poirot catches him pacing in the courtyard, muttering about his father's expectations and Satipi's constant criticism. She pushed me too far, Yamos says, his voice breaking before catching himself. Poirot raises an eyebrow. Did Yamos mean Nofret or Satipi? The slip is telling, and Poirot probes gently, asking about Yamos's whereabouts during both deaths. Yamos claims he was tending to the estate's grain stores, but his alibi is shaky. And a servant later tells Poirot that Yamos was seen near the cliffs the night Satipi died. Meanwhile, Sobek, the brash middle son, grows more reckless, drinking heavily and snapping at anyone who mentions the deaths. When Poirot questions him about the red ochre, Sobek laughs it off, but his eyes dart nervously to Ipi, who's been lurking nearby, his smirk sharper than ever. Ipi, the youngest, is too cocky for his own good, flaunting his father's favor like a shield. But Poirot wonders, is Ipi's confidence a mask for guilt? The chapter's tension peaks when Poirot returns to Hori's quarters at dusk, determined to investigate that locked box. The estate is quiet, the family gathered for a tense dinner, but Poirot moves like a shadow. He finds the box unlocked, someone's been careless and inside. Discovers a bundle of papyrus sheets, one bearing Nofret's handwriting. It's not the full letter, but a draft, and it's explosive. Nofret wrote of a plan to expose a betrayal within the family, hinting at a secret marriage that could shift Imhotep's inheritance. A secret marriage? The revelation hits like a thunderbolt. Could Nofret have been married to someone in the household, threatening the son's claim to the estate? Was she blackmailing Imhotep himself? Before Poirot can read further, a floorboard creaks behind him, turns, but no one's there, just the flicker of a torch in the hallway. The hairs on your neck stand up as Poirot slips the papyrus into his robe, his heart pounding. Someone's watching, and they know he's getting close. The chapter ends with Poirot back in his quarters, the papyrus spread before him under the glow of an oil lamp. He murmurs to himself, the truth is here, but it is a dangerous truth. The estate feels like a tomb, every whisper a potential threat. The red ochre, the secret marriage, the locked box all point to a motive buried deep in the family's past. But who's guarding that secret, and how far will they go to keep it hidden? Is it Hori with his guarded eyes, Yamos cracking under pressure, or someone else entirely, like ESA, whose silence feels more calculated by the minute? The suspense is unbearable, and you're left clutching the edge of your seat. desperate for the next piece of the puzzle. In Chapter 5, Poirot will confront the family with the papyrus's revelation, and a new death will send shockwaves through the estate, pushing him closer to the killer roar into their trap. If you're gripped by this deadly game, hit that like button, subscribe, drop a comment. Who do you think Nofret was married to, and what's ESA hiding? Let's unravel this ancient enigma together. The oil lamp flickers in Hercule Poirot's quarters, casting jagged shadows across the papyrus that holds Nofret's explosive secret. The words secret marriage and betrayal pulse like a warning, and Poirot knows he's holding dynamite. The deaths of Nofret and Satipi have already fractured Imhotep's household, but this new clue, a draft letter hinting at a hidden union, threatens to blow it apart. The estate is a powder keg, with every family member a potential spark. This chapter, Poirot gathers the family to confront them with the papyrus, hoping to flush out the killer. But the truth comes at a cost. A new death rocks the household. Poirot finds himself one step closer to the murderer, and one step closer to danger. The suspense is thicker than ever as lies unravel, and the killer's shadow looms larger. Let's dive into the chaos. Where every word could be a clue and every silence a confession, Poirot calls the family to the central courtyard at dawn. The air cool but heavy with dread. Imhotep stands rigid, his eyes burning with impatience, while his sons Iamos, Sobek, and Apis shift uneasily. Renaissance hovers near her grandmother Isa, whose sharp gaze misses nothing. Hori the scribe lingers at the edge, his face unreadable. Poirot holds up the papyrus fragment, its edges frayed but its words damning.
Ali.
This, he says, his voice steady, was written by Nofret. It speaks of a secret marriage that could destroy this family's legacy. Who among you knows of this? The silence is deafening, broken only by the rustle of palm fronds. Imhotep's face pales, and he demands to see the papyrus, but Poirot tucks it away, his eyes scanning the group. Iamos stammers, claiming ignorance, while Sobek laughs nervously, calling it Nofret's nonsense. IPI, however, smirks, his eyes glinting with something dangerous. Maybe she was married to one of us, he taunts, glancing at his brothers. The accusation lands like a stone in still water. Rippling through the family, Renaissance breaks the tension, her voice trembling. Father, did Nofret ever speak of a husband? Imhotep snaps that Nofret was his concubine, nothing more but his. Hands shake as he grips his staff. Poirot notes the reaction, then turns to ESA, who's been silent too long. Madame ESA, you knew Nofret well. Did she confide in you? The old woman's lips curl into a faint smile, but her words are cryptic. Nofret was a scorpion, stinging. Where she pleased, if she had a secret, it died with her. Poirot's mustache twitches. He knows she's dodging, but before he can press, a scream pierces the air. Servant runs into the courtyard, her face ashen. It's Kate. Cries, she's dead. Kate, Iamos's sister-in-law and Sobek's wife, has been found in the grain storeroom, her throat crushed, a sack of barley spilled beside her. The family freezes, and Poirot's eyes narrow. 3 deaths, all tied to this household. Killer is escalating. Poirot rushes to the storeroom, the family trailing behind like ghosts. Kate's body lies crumpled, her eyes wide with shock, a faint bruise circling her neck. Poirot kneels, his fingers brushing the dust around her. He finds a single bead, turquoise and polished, clutched in her hand, a bead from a necklace Nofret once wore. The coincidence is too stark, and Poirot's mind races. Was Kate killed because she knew about the secret marriage? Or was she, too, a victim of the same motive that claimed Nofret and Satipi? He questions the servant who found her, who swears she saw Sobek arguing with Kate the previous night, his voice raised about family honor. Sobek, pale and sweating, denies it, claiming he was checking the estate's cattle. But Poirot notices a scratch on Sobek's arm, fresh and deep, as if from a struggle. The camera lingers on the bead in Poirot's hand, its blue surface catching the light like a silent accusation. The family's fear is palpable now. Poirot uses it to his advantage, gathers them again, this time in the dim hall where Kate's body was taken. "The killer is among us," he says, his voice cutting through their whispers. Kate held a clue to Nofret's secret, and it cost her life. Who will be next? He watches their faces. Yamas's haunted eyes, Sobek's clenched fists, Ippy's defiant smirk. Renaissance' trembling lips, Esa's unreadable calm, and Hori's guarded silence. Each has a motive: greed, jealousy, fear of losing Imhotep's wealth, but the secret marriage changes everything. Poirot theorizes aloud, testing their reactions. Perhaps Nofret was wed to someone outside the family, threatening your inheritance. Or perhaps he pauses, his eyes on Imhotep. She was wed to you, monsieur, in secret, making her a greater threat than any concubine. Imhotep roars in protest, but S's sharp laugh cuts him off. "My son, you always were blind to ambition," she says, her words dripping with meaning. Poirot files it away, sensing Issa knows more than she's revealed, as night falls. Poirot retreats to his quarters, the turquoise bead and papyrus fragment laid out before him. Pieces together the clues: Nofret's letter, the red ochre, the cliffs at Thebes, search through Nofret's belongings, and now Kate's death with Nofret's bead in her hand. The killer is tying up loose ends, but they're growing careless. Poirot recalls a detail from Renessenby. Kate had been unusually quiet after Satepi's death, avoiding the family and whispering with Hori in the garden. Is Kate protecting Hori? Or blackmailing him? And what of Esa, whose cryptic comments hint at a deeper knowledge? The chapter closes with a chilling moment. Poirot hears a soft knock at his door, but when he opens it, no one's there, just a single turquoise bead, identical to Kate's, rolling across the floor. Someone's sending a message, and it's not subtle. The killer knows Poirot's clothes. They're not afraid to strike again. The estate is a house of mirrors, reflecting lies and half-truths. Poirot's confrontation has shaken the family, but Kate's death proves the killer is one step ahead. Is it Sobek, whose temper betrays him, whose wisdom hides a ruthless streak, or someone else, lurking in plain sight? In Chapter 6, Poirot will follow the trail of the turquoise beads, and a shocking betrayal will bring him face to face with the killer's motive. If you're hooked on this deadly dance, hit that like button, subscribe, and comment below. Who do you think left that bead at Poirot's door? Let's keep unraveling this ancient mystery together. The single turquoise bead rolls to a stop at Hercule Poirot's feet, a silent taunt left in the dead of night. The air in Imhotep's estate is thick with menace, and Poirot knows the killer is watching his every move. 3 women Nofret, Satepi and Kate are dead. Their murders tied to a cryptic papyrus hinting at a secret marriage that could append the family's legacy. The turquoise bead, identical to the one clutched in Kate's lifeless hand, is no coincidence. It's a warning, or perhaps a challenge. In this chapter, Poirot follows the trail of these beads, piecing together their significance while navigating a household where trust is a fading memory. A shocking betrayal looms, and the detective's relentless pursuit of the truth brings him closer to the killer's identity and their crosshairs. The suspense is a tightening noose, and every clue pulls us deeper into the heart of this ancient Egyptian nightmare. Let's follow Poirot as he chases shadows, knowing one wrong step could be his last. Poirot begins the morning in the marketplace of Thebes, where the bustle of traders and the scent of spices mask the darkness he carries. The turquoise bead is his focus, a rare polished stone, not common in the household but linked to Nofret and now Kate. He visits a local jeweler, a wiry man with nervous hands, who confirms the beads come from a specific craftsman known for adorning the elite. Only a few in Thebes could afford such work, the jeweler says. It's mentioning a necklace commissioned for a foreign woman months ago. Poirot's eyes gleamed Nofret. The outsider wore such a necklace, its beads scattering like breadcrumbs. Through this mystery, but why was one in Kate's hand and now at his door? The jeweler hesitates, then admits he overheard the craftsman mention delivering the necklace to Imhotep's estate, ordered by someone other than the patriarch. Who? Poirot presses, his voice sharp. The jeweler shrugs, but his glance toward the estate's direction speaks volumes. Poirot tucks the bead away, his mind racing. Someone in the household gifted Nofret that necklace, tying them to her in a way that's now deadly. Back at the estate, Poirot moves with purpose, his polite smile a mask for his growing urgency. He seeks out Renacinda, whose grief and sharp instincts make her his most trusted ally, though even she's not above suspicion. In the shade of a sycamore tree, Renaissance admits she saw Nofret's necklace break during her argument with Hori. Near the cliffs, beads scattered everywhere, she says, her voice trembling. I helped her gather them, but some were lost. Poirot's mustache twitches. Those beads are now turning up in the hands of the dead and at his doorstep. He asks Renaissance if Kate ever mentioned the necklace, and her eyes widen. Kate was wearing a turquoise bead on a cord the day she died. She whispers, I thought it was just a trinket. Poirot's mind clicks. Kate had a bead, perhaps taken from Nofret's scattered necklace. But why? Was she investigating Nofret's death, or was she involved in something darker? Renaissance's hands twist nervously, and Poirot notices her glance toward Hori's quarters. The scribe, always lurking, is becoming a central figure in this deadly puzzle. Poirot confronts Hori next, finding him in his cramped office, surrounded by scrolls and the faint scent of ink. The locked box Poirot saw earlier is open, its contents carefully arranged. You knew of Nofret's necklace, Monsieur Hori, Poirot says, holding up the bead. Hori's face remains calm, but his fingers pause over a papyrus. It was a gift, he says, his voice steady. Nofret received it from someone in the household, but she never said who. Poirot leans closer, his eyes locked on Hori's, and the papyrus, the one speaking of a secret marriage. Hori's composure cracks for a moment, his gaze flickering. To the box. He admits Nofret asked him to hide a letter, but he claims he'd never read it. She said it was her protection, he adds, his voice low. Protection from whom? Poirot presses, but Hori shuts down, insisting he's loyal to Imhotep. Yet, as Poirot leaves, he notices a turquoise bead, half hidden under a scroll on Hori's desk. The scribe's calm is a facade. Poirot knows he's hiding a piece of the truth. The day takes a darker turn when Poirot overhears a heated exchange between Sobek and IPE in the courtyard. Sobek, his face flushed with wine, accuses IP of meddling where you don't belong. IP laughs, his voice dripping with scorn. You're just scared, brother. Scared you'll lose everything. Poirot, hidden behind a pillar, listens intently. The argument turns to Nofret, with Sobek spitting that she ruined us all with her schemes. Ippy's reply is chilling. She's gone, and so are the others. Maybe it's for the best. The words hang in the air, and Poirot's heart quickens. Is IP confessing, or merely taunting? When Poirot steps forward, both brothers freeze, their faces masks of guilt and defiance. He questions them about the necklace, showing the bead. Sobek swears he never touched it, but Ippy's smirk falters, and he mutters something about servants stealing trinkets. Poirot's gaze lingers on IPI, whose confidence is starting to crack. As night falls, the estate feels like a trap closing in. Poirot sits with ESA Imhotep's cunning mother, whose sharp tongue and sharper mind make her a formidable player. You see much, Madame, Poirot says, holding the bead between his fingers. What do you know of this? S's eyes narrow, and she leans forward, her voice a low hiss. That necklace was trouble from the start. Nofret flaunted it, as if it proved her power. She pauses, her gaze piercing. Ask yourself, Poirot, who gave it to her and why they wanted it back. Birds are a dagger, pointing to a betrayal at the heart of the family. Before Poirot can ask more, a cry echoes through the estate. A servant has found another bead, this time near the well, alongside a blood-stained cloth. Poirot races to the scene, his pulse pounding. The cloth is torn from a robe, and the weave matches one he saw IP wearing. The camera zooms in on the blood, dark and fresh, and you can feel the killer's presence, close and cold. The chapter ends with Poirot standing by the well, the bead and cloth in hand, his face grim. The trail of the turquoise beads is leading him somewhere dangerous, and the betrayal ESA hinted at feels closer than ever. Was Nofret married to someone in the family, and labyrinth, and was she killed to keep that secret? And is IP, with his blood-stained robe, the key to it all? The suspense is suffocating, and Poirot knows the next move could be his last. In Chapter 7, a new discovery will shatter the family's fragile trust, and Poirot will face a choice that could cost him everything. If you're gripped by this mystery, hit that like button, subscribe, and comment. Who gave Nofret the necklace? Let's keep unraveling this deadly web. The blood-stained cloth in Poirot's hand feels heavier than it should, its coarse weave tying IIP to the growing list of deaths. The turquoise beads, scattered like omens, have led Hercule Poirot through a maze of lies in Imhotep's estate, where Nofret, Satipi, and Kate now lie dead, victims of a killer who's always one step ahead. The papyrus hinting at a secret marriage has set the family on edge, and the blood on Epi's robe suggests the youngest son may be more than just a spoiled schemer. But in this ancient Egyptian household, trust is a mirage, and every clue could be a trap. In this chapter, Poirot uncovers a devastating truth that shatters the family's fragile unity, forcing him to make a choice that could unmask the killer or make him their next target. The estate is a pressure cooker, and the heat is rising. Let's dive into the heart of this betrayal, where every whisper could be a death sentence. Poirot gathers the family in the Great Hall, the air thick with fear and accusation. Imhotep's face is a storm of rage and grief, his sons Iamos, Sobek, and Ipa standing like statues, each hiding their own secrets. Renaissance clutches her shawl, her eyes darting between her brothers, while Issa watches from her chair, her expression unreadable. Hori stands apart, his hands folded, but his calm is a thin veneer. Poirot holds up the blood-stained cloth, its crimson stain glaring under the torchlight. This, he says, his voice cutting through the silence, was found near the well. With another turquoise bead, it belongs to a robe worn by Monsieur Ipai. The room erupts, Imhotep shouts, demanding answers, while Ipai laughs, his voice sharp with defiance. A servant's trick, he snaps. But his eyes flicker to Sobek, who's sweating despite the cool night. Poirot's little gray cells are buzzing, piecing together the beads, the blood, and the papyrus. The secret marriage is the key, but whose secret is it? Poirot turns to Iamos, the eldest son, whose quiet demeanor hides a storm of doubt. You knew Nofret well, Monsieur Iamos, Poirot says, his tone gentle but probing. Did she ever speak of a husband? Perhaps one who stood to gain from her schemes? Iamos's face crumples, and he admits Nofret once hinted at a bond. With someone powerful? Someone who could change the family's future? His voice breaks, and he glances at Imhotep, who stiffens. Rose's gaze shifts to the patriarch, whose silence is louder than any protest. Could Imhotep himself be? The secret husband, marrying Nofret to secure an alliance or a fortune? The idea is explosive. But before Poirot can press, Renaissance gasps, her hand covering her mouth. It wasn't father, she whispers. It was Hori. The name lands like a thunderbolt, and all eyes turn to the scribe, whose face drains. Of color, Hori's composure shatters as Poirot steps closer, holding the papyrus fragment. You hid Nofret's letter, Monsieur Hori, he says. A letter that spoke of a marriage. Was it yours? The room holds its breath, and Hori's voice is barely audible. She was my wife, he confesses, his words a blade through the family's trust. He explains in halting tones. Nofret, ambitious and cunning, married him in secret to secure a claim to Imhotep's wealth, knowing Hori's loyalty to the family could sway the patriarch's will. But when Nofret grew greedy, threatening to expose the marriage to force Imhotep's hand, Hori panicked. I didn't kill her, he insists, his eyes pleading. No, but someone did. Poirot's mind races. Hori's confession explains Nofret's power, but does it explain her death? And what of Satipi and Kate? The blood on Epi's robe and the beads suggest another hand at play. The family reels, Imhotep's rage turning. On Hori, you betrayed me, he roars. But ESA's sharp voice cuts through. Enough, my son. We all have secrets. Poirot seizes the moment, asking ESA about the red ochre found at the cliff. Her eyes narrow, and she admits the ochre is hers, used in rituals, but denies any role in the murders. I'm old, Poirot, not foolish, she says, her tone icy. Yet her knowledge of the ochre and her cryptic warnings about Nofret's necklace make Poirot wary. He shifts to Sobek, whose temper flares when asked about Kate's death. I loved her, shouts, but the scratch on his arm and his weak alibi tell a different story. Poirot then confronts IPI, whose smirk is gone, replaced by a nervous tick. The blood-stained cloth is his, but he claims it was stolen, planted to frame him. The family is fracturing, each accusation a crack in their unity, as the confrontation ends. Poirot steps outside, the night air cold against his skin. He finds another clue near the well, a small vial of poison hidden in the sand, its stopper marked with red ochre. The discovery is chilling. Poison could explain Kate's crushed throat, staged to look like a strangling. But whose poison? Issa's ochre, Hori's secret, Epi's blood-stained row ballpoint in different directions, yet converge on the same truth. The killer is desperate to protect the family's legacy. Poirot's choice is clear. He must expose the murderer before they strike again, even if it means risking his own life. The chapter closes with him standing alone, the vial in his hand, as a shadow moves in the darkness. The killer is near, and the truth is a heartbeat away. In Chapter 8, Poirot will follow the poison's trail. A final clue will point to the killer's identity, setting the stage for a revelation that will shake the estate to its core. If you're hooked on this deadly game, hit that like button, subscribe, can comment. Is Hori telling the truth, or is Issa the mastermind? Let's unravel this mystery together.
Stay tuned.
The desert night wraps Imhotep's estate in a suffocating hush, broken only by the faint rustle of palm fronds and the pounding of Hercule Poirot's heart. The small vial of poison, its stopper stained with red ochre, rests in his hand like a ticking bomb. 3 women, Nofret, Satipi, and Kitar, dead. Their murders woven into a tapestry of secrets, a hidden marriage. Turquoise beads scattered like accusations, a blood-stained cloth tied to IPI, and now this poison hinting at a killer who's both cunning and desperate. Hori's confession of his secret marriage to Nofret has shattered the family's trust. But Poirot knows the truth runs deeper, a venomous thread tying the deaths together. In this chapter, we follow Poirot as he chases the poison's trail, uncovering a final clue that points to the killer's identity. The estate is a labyrinth of lies, and every step brings Poirot closer to a revelation that could cost him his life. The suspense is a blade at the throat, and the shadows are alive with danger. Let's plunge into the heart of this ancient enigma. Where the truth is as deadly as the poison itself, Poirot begins at dawn. The vial hidden in his robe as he moves through the estate with the stealth of a cat. The red ochre on the stopper points to Issa, Imhotep's sharp-witted mother. His ritual supplies include the rare pigment. He finds her in her chambers, surrounded by jars of herbs and powders, her eyes glinting with a mix of amusement and defiance. "You think I'm the poisoner, Monsieur Poirot?" she asks, her voice dry as the desert sand. Poirot holds up the vial, his gaze unwavering. "This was found near the well, madame, with your ochre. Kate's death was no strangling poison. Stopped her heart, and the killer staged it to deceive." Issa's smile fades, but she doesn't flinch. She admits the ochre is hers, used in offerings to the gods, but insists her supply is locked away. "Check my jars," she challenges, gesturing to a wooden chest. Poirot does, finding no vials, like the one in his hand. But he notices a faint smudge of ochre on the chest's lock, as if someone tampered with it. "Someone borrowed your ochre, madame," he says, "and used it to mark their crime." Issa's eyes narrow, and she mutters, "Or to mark me." The camera lingers on her face, her expression a mix of cunning and fear. Is she a mastermind? Or a scapegoat? Poirot's next stop is the kitchen, where the servants prepare the family's meals under the watchful eye of Henet, a gossipy older woman who's been with the household for years. Henet's tongue is as sharp as her loyalty is questionable, and Poirot knows she sees more than she says. He questions her about the vial, describing its shape and the ochre stain. Henet's hands tremble as she stirs a pot, her eyes darting to the doorway. "I've seen no such thing," she says too quickly. Poirot presses, his voice soft but relentless. "You knew Kate, Madame Henet? Did she ever speak of poison, or of Nofret's secrets?" Henet's face tightens, and she whispers that Kate was asking about herbs days before her death, specifically ones used in rituals, herbs only Issa would know. Poirot's mustache twitches. The link between Kate and Issa's supplies is no coincidence. But before Henet can say more, Sobek bursts in, his face flushed with anger. "Stop harassing the servants, Poirot," he shouts, his voice slurring from wine. Poirot notes the fresh bandage on Sobek's arm, covering the scratch from Kate's. Struggle. Henet scurries away, but not before Poirot catches her glance at Sobek, a mix of fear and something deeper complicity, perhaps. The trail leads Poirot back to the cliffs, where Nofret and Setipi met their ends. The sun beats down, and the wind carries the faint scent of dust and death. He examines the area again, his eyes scanning for anything overlooked. Near the edge, half buried in the sand, he finds a small clay shard, its edge stained with a dark, sticky residue. Poirot sniffs it, cautiously bitter, acrid. Like the poison he suspects killed Kate, the shard matches the vial's material, suggesting it was broken here, perhaps in haste. He recalls Renaissance story of Setipi searching Nofret's belongings, and a new theory forms. Setipi found the poison meant for someone else, and was killed to keep her silent. But who prepared it? Poirot's mind flashes to Hori, whose secret marriage to Nofret gave him motive, but also to Ipe, who's blood-stained. Robe and smug confidence scream guilt. And then there's Sobek, whose temper and shaky alibis make him a ticking bomb. The camera zooms in on the shard, its dark stain a silent scream of the truth. Poirot seeks out Yamos next, finding him in the grain storeroom where Kate died. The eldest son is a shadow of himself, his eyes hollow with grief and fear. "You've lost much, Monsieur Yamos," Poirot says, his tone gentle but probing. "Setipi, your wife, and now Kate, your brother's wife. Did they know something dangerous?" Yamos's hands shake as he stacks sacks of barley, his voice barely a whisper. Setipi was angry. Nofret had a hold over father. Something that could ruin us. Poirot leans closer, mentioning the poison. Yamos flinches, admitting he saw Kate with a vial days before her death, but thought it was medicine. She was scared, he says, his voice breaking. She said someone was watching her. Poirot's eyes narrow Kate's fear mirrors. Nofret's and the poison ties them together. He asks Yamos about IP, whose robe was bloodstained. Yamos hesitates, then confesses IAPI had been boasting about taking control of the family's wealth. The words hang heavy, and Poirot wonders, is IAPI the mastermind, or a pawn in a larger game?
Yes.
Dusk settles, Poirot returns to Hori's. Quarters determined to confront the scribe about the poison. Hori is alone, his desk cluttered with scrolls, but the locked box is gone. "You moved it, Monsieur Hori," Poirot says, his voice sharp. "What are you hiding?" Hori's face is pale, but he denies nothing. "The box is safe," he says, "but it holds no poison." Poirot shows him the vial in Hori's eyes. "Widen." "That's not mine," he insists, but his voice cracks. He admits Nofret had asked him to store herbs, claiming they were for protection. Poirot's mind races protection or murder. Before he can press further, a scream splits. The night. The family rushes to the courtyard, where Imhotep stands over a fallen servant, a young boy who tended the gardens. His lips are blue, his body convulsing poison unmistakably. Poirot kneels, recognizing the same bitter scent from the shard. The boy gasps, his final words a choked whisper. The old one, she knew. The camera lingers on his lifeless face, then pans to ESA, whose expression is unreadable in the torchlight. The family is in chaos, Imhotep shouting accusations, Sobek pacing like a caged lion, Ipai silent for once. Renesmee clings to Poirot, her voice trembling. "It's not over, is it? Someone's still killing." Poirot nods, his face grim. The boy's death is a message, and the words the old 1.2 ESA or, is it a clever misdirection? He gathers the family, holding up the vial and the shard. "The poison links these deaths," he declares. "Nofret, Setipi, Kate, and now this boy. Someone in this room knows the truth." His eyes lock on ESA, then IP, then Sobek, finally Hori. Each face betrays something: fear, guilt, defiance. But the killer's mask is still intact. Poirot's final clue comes as he examines the boy's body later that night, a single turquoise bead. Tucked in the boy's sash, identical to the others, the killer is taunting him, leaving a trail that's both a challenge and a trap. The chapter closes with Poirot alone in his quarters. The vial, shard, and bead spread before him like pieces of a shattered mosaic. His little gray cells work furiously, connecting the dots: Nofret's secret marriage to Hori, Satipi's discovery of the poison, Kate's bead, the boy's dying words, and Essa's ochre. The killer is close, their motive tied to the family's wealth and the secret that threatens it. But the poison's trail is a double-edged sword. Poirot is closer to the truth, but the killer is closer to him. A shadow moves outside his window, and the sound of footsteps fades into the night. The estate is a tomb, and Poirot knows the next death could be his own. In Chapter 9, Poirot will stage a daring trap to unmask the killer, risking everything to force their hand. If you're hooked on this deadly dance, hit that like button, subscribe, and comment. Is ESA the poisoner? Or is IPI playing a deadlier game? Let's unravel this ancient mystery together. Stay tuned. The desert moon hangs low over Imhotep's estate, its pale light casting eerie shadows across the mud brick walls. Hercule Poirot stands alone in his quarters, the vial of poison, the clay shard, and the turquoise bead laid out before him like pieces of a deadly puzzle. The murders of Nofret, Satipi, Kate, and now the young servant boy have turned the household into a nest of vipers, each member coiled with secrets. Hori's confession of his secret marriage to Nofret, the blood-stained cloth tied to IFI, the red ochre linked to ESA, and the poison that killed Kate and the boy all point to a killer who's both ruthless and cunning. But Poirot is no ordinary detective. His little gray cells are a weapon, and he's ready to strike. In this chapter, Poirot sets a daring trap to unmask the killer, risking his own life to force their hand. The estate is a powder keg, and one spark could ignite a truth so shocking it will shatter everything. Let's step into the heart of this deadly game, where every move could be Poirot's last. Poirot begins the day with a plan as precise as it is dangerous. He knows the killer is watching, leaving beads as taunts and poison as a signature. To catch them, he must make them believe he's closer to the truth than he is. He starts by summoning Renaissance to the garden, where the morning sun glints off the Nile in the distance. "Mademoiselle," he says, his voice low, "I need your help to end this nightmare." He shows her a forged letter, crafted in his own hand to mimic Nofret's script, claiming it's the missing piece of her papyrus. The letter falsely states that Poirot has discovered the killer's identity and will reveal it at dusk. Renaissance' eyes widen, her hands trembling. "You're baiting them," she whispers. Poirot nods, his mustache twitching. "The killer will act to silence me, and when they do, we will have them." I ask Renaissance to spread word of the letter subtly, ensuring the family overhears without suspecting a trap. Her loyalty is his gamble, but her fear of more deaths makes her agree. The camera lingers on her face, torn between trust and terror, as she nods. Poirot next visits Hori, the scribe whose secret marriage to Nofret has made him a prime suspect. In the dim light of Hori's quarters, Poirot casually mentions the new evidence in the forged letter, watching Hori's reaction. "I've found Nofret's final words." Poirot lies, his eyes locked on Hori's. They name her killer. Hori's fingers freeze on a scroll, his face paling. "Impossible," he mutters, but his voice betrays a flicker of panic. Insists he hid Nofret's original letter to protect her honor, not to cover a crime, but Poirot notes the sweat on his brow. As he leaves, Poirot deliberately drops a turquoise bead near the door, ensuring Hori sees it. The scribe's eyes widen, and Poirot knows the seed is planted. If Hori is the killer, he'll act to retrieve the letter before dusk. If not, he'll spread the word, and the real killer will take the bait. The suspense builds like a tightening knot, each step a calculated risk. The family gathers for the midday meal, the tension so thick it chokes the air. Imhotep, his face haggard, demands Poirot end his meddling, but his voice shakes with fear. Sobek, nursing a cup of wine, snaps at IPI, who's unusually quiet, his smirk replaced by a nervous tick. Issa watches from her corner, her eyes sharp as a hawk's, while Henet, the gossipy servant, hovers near Renaissance, whispering. Poirot, seated among them, lets the forged letter's existence slip, saying he's locked it in his quarters for safekeeping. It holds the truth, he says, his voice carrying just enough to reach every ear. Yamos drops his bread, Sobek's cup trembles, and Ippy's eyes dart to the door. Yes's lips curl into a faint smile, but she says nothing. Wenisand, playing her part, gasps softly, ensuring the family believes the letter is real. The camera pans across their faces, each a mask of guilt, fear, or calculation. The trap is set, but who will spring it? As the day wears on, Poirot prepares his quarters, rigging a simple trap. A thread tied across the doorway, invisible in the dim light, to alert him if someone enters. He hides the forged letter in a clay jar, leaving it slightly ajar to tempt the intruder. Outside, he enlists a trusted servant, Kamini, a young man who stayed out of the family's drama, to watch the courtyard and report any movement. Kamini, loyal but nervous, agrees, his eyes wide with the weight of the task. Poirot then visits the cliffs one last time, searching for final clues. He finds a faint footprint in the sand, small and narrow, unlike the men's sandals. It could belong to Renaissance, ESA, or even Henet. The discovery chills him. Could the killer be a woman, hiding behind the family's chaos? He pockets a final turquoise bead found nearby, its surface warm from the sun, returns to the estate, his heart pounding. The killer is close, and dusk is approaching. As the sun dips low, the estate grows quiet, the family retreating to their quarters. Poirot waits in the shadows near his room, his senses sharp. The thread across his doorway remains intact, but a faint creak echoes from the hall. He creeps forward, his breath shallow, and spots a figure slipping into Hori's quarters. It's IP, his movements quick and furtive. Poirot follows, silent as a ghost, and peers through a crack in the door. IP is rifling through Hori's scrolls, his face twisted with desperation. "Where is it?" he mutters, unaware of Poirot's presence. But before Poirot can act, a shadow moves behind him, a woman, her face obscured by a shawl. She raises a dagger, its blade glinting in the torchlight. Poirot spins, dodging just in time, and the woman flees into the night. The camera catches her silhouette, slim and swift, but her identity is a blur. IP, startled, bolts from Hori's room, and Poirot lets him go, his mind racing. The trap has worked, but not as planned. 2 suspects have shown their hands, but the killer remains a shadow. Poirot returns to his quarters, finding the thread broken and the clay jar empty. The forged letter is gone, but a new clue awaits. A scrap of cloth, torn and stained with red ochre, tucked under his mat. It matches ESA's ritual robes, but the tear is fresh, as if ripped in a struggle. Poirot's heart sinks. ESA, the cunning matriarch, or someone framing her? He recalls the boy's dying words, the old one. She knew, and the footprint at the cliff. The pieces are falling into place, but the picture is still incomplete. The woman with the dagger, IPI's search, the stolen letter all point to a killer desperate to cover their tracks. Poirot sits, his notebook open, and writes, "The killer is among the women." Essay. Renaissance B or Henneby's guilt cannot be ignored. The suspense is unbearable. The estate a chessboard where Poirot is both player and pawn. The chapter ends with Poirot standing in the courtyard. The stolen letter's absence, a victory and a threat. The killer has taken the bait, but they've also shown their ruthlessness. The woman with the dagger, the ochre-stained cloth, and Epe's desperation are the final clues Poirot needs. But the truth is a razor's edge. Is Issa orchestrating the murders from her shadowed corner, or is Renaissance grief a mask for betrayal? What of Henet, the servant who sees all but says little? The estate is a tomb. Poirot's trap has brought him closer to the killer and to his own doom. In Chapter 10, Poirot will gather the family for a final confrontation, where the shocking revelation will unmask the killer and lay bare the heart of this deadly mystery. If you're gripped by this ancient enigma, hit that like button, subscribe, and comment. Was it ES's dagger, or is IPI the true mastermind? Let's unravel this final twist together. Stay tuned. The desert night cloaks Imhotep's estate in a veil of dread. the air thick with the weight of impending truth. Hercule Poirot stands in the courtyard, the stolen forged letter, the ochre-stained cloth, and the turquoise beads burning in his mind like embers. The murders of Nofret, Satipi, Kate, and the young servant boy have torn the family apart, each death a thread in a tapestry of betrayal. Hori's secret marriage to Nofret, Ippy's blood-stained robe, Esa's red ochre, the poisoned vial, and the mysterious woman with the dagger have led Poirot to this moment, a final confrontation to unmask the killer. The trap he set in Chapter 9 has stirred the hornet's nest, revealing Ippy's desperation and a shadowy woman's attempt on his life. Now, with the family on edge and the killer cornered, Poirot prepares to reveal a truth so shocking it will shatter the estate's fragile facade. The suspense is a heartbeat, pounding in the darkness as Poirot steps into the lion's den. Let's witness the climax of this ancient Egyptian nightmare, where the truth cuts deeper than any blade. Poirot gathers the family in the great hall at midnight, flickering torches casting long shadows that dance like specters. Imhotep stands, rigid, his face a mask of fury and fear, while his sons Yamo, Sobek, and IP form a tense semicircle. Renaissance clings to her shawl, her eyes wide with dread, and Esa sits in her carved chair, her gaze as sharp as a falcon's. Hori hovers near the back, his hands clasped tightly, while Henet, the gossipy servant, lingers by the door. Her face, pale Kamini, the young servant Poirot enlisted, guards the entrance, ensuring no one leaves. Poirot steps into the center, his voice steady but commanding. Tonight, he declares, the murders end. The killer is in this room, and their mask will fall. The silence is suffocating, every eye locked on him, some with fear, others with defiance. He holds up the ochre-stained cloth, the turquoise bead, and the poison vial's shard, each a piece of the deadly puzzle. These, he says, tell a story of greed, betrayal, and a secret that costs 4 lives. He begins with Nofret's death, the spark that ignited the bloodshed. Nofret was no mere concubine, Poirot says, his eyes on Imhotep. Was married to Hori, a secret that threatened your legacy. Hori nods, his face grim, confirming the marriage but denying the murder. Poirot continues, detailing how Nofret's ambition to secure a claim to Imhotep's wealth made her a target. Someone pushed her from the cliff, he says, and Satipi, who knew too much, followed. He turns to Yamos, whose hands tremble. Monsieur Yamos told me Satipi found something in Nofret's belongings, a vial, perhaps? Yamos stammers, admitting Satipi was searching for proof of Nofret's schemes but found nothing. Poirot's gaze shifts to Sobek, whose scratch and weak alibis mark him as a suspect. And you, Monsieur Sobek, argued with Kate before her death. Did she know your secrets? Sobek's face reddens, but he denies everything, his voice hoarse. With panic, Poirot then addresses the poison, holding up the shard. Kate was poisoned, her death staged as a strangling, and the boy followed, his lips blue with the same venom. He pauses, his eyes locking on Esa. The red ochre on the vial points to you, madame. You knew of the poison, did you not? Esau's lips curl into a sneer. I know many things, Poirot, but I'm no murderer. She admits the ochre is hers, but insists it was stolen, her eyes darting to Henet. The servant gasps, shrinking back, but Poirot's attention moves to Ipi, whose blood-stained robe and late-night search in Hori's quarters scream guilt. Monsieur Ipi sought the letter I claim to have? Why? Ipi's smirk is gone, his voice shaky. I just wanted to know what Nofret wrote, he mutters, but his eyes flicker to Renaissance, a strange intensity in them. The camera lingers on his face. You can feel the tension spiking. Poirot's trap comes to light as he reveals the forged letter was a ruse to flush out the killer. Someone took it from my quarters, he says, and left this. He holds up the ochre-stained cloth, torn from Esa's robe. But then he drops the bombshell. This cloth was planted, meant to frame Madame Esa. The family gasps, and Esa's eyes widen, but she remains silent. Poirot turns to Renaissance's voice, softening. Mademoiselle, you saw the woman with the dagger, did you not? The one who tried to silence me? Renaissance's face crumples, tears welling. I didn't want to believe it, she whispers. It was Henet. The room erupts, Henet shrieking denials, but Poirot raises a hand, silencing her. Madame. Henet, he says, you've been the shadow in this house, listening, scheming, poisoning. The revelation unfolds like a thunderclap. Poirot explains, Henet, the overlooked servant, was Nofret's confidant, privy to her secret marriage and her plan to manipulate Imhotep's will. But Henet had her own agenda resentment, for years of servitude, a burning desire for power. You saw Nofret's ambition as your chance, Poirot says, his voice relentless. You poisoned her wine, then pushed her from the cliff to make it look like an accident. Satipi, suspecting Henet after finding the vial, was silenced next, her fall staged to match Nofret's. Kate, who overheard Henet whispering to Nofret about the marriage, was poisoned to keep her quiet, the turquoise bead planted to confuse. The trail. The boy, a witness to Henet's movements near the well, was her final victim. The ochre, stolen from ESA, was Henet's attempt to frame the matriarch. While the beads were a taunt, a twisted game to mock Poirot's pursuit, Henet collapses. Sobbing, but her denials falter as Poirot produces a final clue, a hidden cache. In her quarters, found by Kamini, containing a vial of poison and Nofret's full letter, detailing Henet's role in her schemes. You betrayed Nofret, then killed to cover your tracks, Poirot says, his voice heavy with finality. Imhotep roars, lunging at Henet, but Kamini restrains him. Renescent bleeps, her trust in the servant who raised her shattered. ESA for once is speechless, her cunning no match for Henet's ruthlessness. Hori steps forward, his voice quiet. Should have seen it, he says, guilt in his eyes. Sobek and IP stand stunned, their own sins paling against Henet's. The camera zooms in on Henet's face, her mask of loyalty gone. Revealing a woman consumed by envy and vengeance, Poirot closes the case, his voice solemn. The truth, Mies Amos, is a bitter draught. Henet sought to rise above her station, but her greed led to death. He turns to Imhotep, urging him to heal his family's wounds. As Henet is led away by Kamini, the estate feels empty, the weight of loss heavy in the air. Poirot steps into the courtyard, the dawn breaking over the Nile, and reflects on the cost of secrets. The turquoise beads, the poison, the blood all were Henet's tools, but the family's own divisions gave her the opportunity. The mystery is solved, but the scars remain. The chapter ends with Poirot packing his belongings, his notebook filled with the case's details. He glances at Renaissance, who offers a sad smile, a flicker of hope in her eyes. The estate will survive, but it will never be the same. Poirot walks toward the Nile, the sun rising, and the camera pans across the cliffs, now silent, their secrets laid bare. The truth was shocking, but Poirot's little gray cells prevailed. If you've been gripped by this ancient whodunit, hit that like button, subscribe, can comment. Did you suspect Henet, or were you shocked by her betrayal? Share your thoughts below, and let's keep exploring the mysteries that keep us on the edge of our seats. Thank you for joining me in this deadly dance. Stay curious,